Good evening. Welcome to Allen University
Yes, sir.
and also to the Boeing Institute on Civility. My name is Dr. Stanley Pritchett. I serve as the interim president at Allen University, and it's a privilege to gather with you tonight for this fireside chat featuring Congressman Jim Clyburn and his book, The First Eight. We're honored to host this conversation in a space dedicated to the very values Congressman Clyburn's life and leadership represent: civility, service, and principled courage. The First Eight is more than a story of milestones. It's a reminder that progress is built step by people willing to lead, to listen, and to keep the faith with what's right even when it's difficult. Tonight, we reflect on the lessons of that journey and what they mean for this moment and for the leaders we are preparing here at Allen University. Thank you for your presence this evening, and thank you for supporting Allen University and the Boeing Institute on Civility. Congressman Clyburn, we're grateful for your presence and your enduring example. Before we begin, let's welcome to the stage tonight's moderator, Dr. Tony Sims Mohammed. She serves as the university's provost and vice president for academic affairs. As the university's chief academic officer, she leads our academic vision, supporting faculty excellence, strengthening student success, and ensuring our programs remain rigorous and mission aligned. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Tony Mohammed.
Thank you, President Pritchett. It is my honor to welcome to the stage Congressman James E. Clyburn.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So good evening again, and welcome to Allen University's Fireside Chat. Congressman James E. Clyburn represents South Carolina's 6th congressional district in the U.S. House of Representatives, and he has been a leading voice in national public service for decades. He has served in House Democratic leadership, including as House Majority Whip, and currently chairs the Democratic Faith Working Group. He is also the author of The First Eight, a personal history of the pioneering Black congressman who shaped a nation, which lifts up the legacy of trailblazing Black public servants and lessons their leadership offers for our moment today. Congressman Clyburn, welcome again to Allen University.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
So let's start with what brought you to this book and what compelled you to write The First Eight, and why did it feel right at this moment in time?
Well, let me begin by thanking the bishop, the president, for allowing me to be here today and to share this experience with you. I know that many of you have heard over and over again, the first Black to do this and the first Black to do that. So much so until people coming into my office would see these 8 pictures on the wall and ask about them, and I would explain to people who these 8 people were. And one day, when I finished my explanation, a lady in the group said to me, "My Lord, I thought you were the first African American to serve in Congress from South Carolina." And I kind of playfully said, "No, before I was first, there were 8.
Yes.
And that is what I started out to do. I told my staff later that day, I think it's time for me to write a book about these 8 people. Now, this is my 3rd book. My first book was about those people in Summerton, South Carolina, by the way, who were organized to challenge segregated schools, organized by a Reverend J.A. Delane, who happened to have been an AME minister. My second book was my memoir. So I told my staff, my next book's going to be by these 8 people.
Yes.
But in the middle of writing the book, the 2020 elections came. And I saw the reaction to the 2020 elections that led to what we know now as January 6, 2021. And that's when I decided that this book had to be a little bit different than what I intended it to be, because I saw what was happening with that count on January 6th, attempts to replicate what happened in 1876 that led to the ending of these 8 people's careers. Jim Crow got started, Reconstruction came to an end, and I decided to write the book the way I wrote it. I'm thinking now that I probably should have amplified the title a little bit, because these people did pioneer in this country, but they also foretold what's happening today. And so the book is written that way, so that each one of you who read this book will understand what is happening every day you pick up your newspapers or watch television and see the foolishness going on in Washington. It is not without precedence. All of this has happened before.
Wow, amazing and powerful. So, just hearing you speak, I'm curious, and I'm sure the audience is too. Can you share with us two from among the book who really have modeled the examples that you followed in your life?
Well, I would think there's a little bit of most of these people in my life. My father had 2 rules that we were required to adhere to when I was growing up. Every morning before breakfast, we had to recite a Bible verse. We were not allowed to lift the fork until you recite a Bible verse. And you couldn't say the same one twice. And on the day he laid down the rule, he took Jesus' whip off the table. So you had to do a little more than sharp for this little verses. But every evening before retiring to bed, we had to read, we had to share with him a current event. And we didn't have television. But the Something Daily Item was delivered to our home every afternoon. Now I know today it's a morning paper, but when I was growing up, it was an afternoon paper. But you had to read that newspaper in order to share a current event. And so I grew up with this stuff, reading about people. And my dad thought that Robert Smalls, who was number 6 on the list of 8, was the greatest man who ever lived. My mother begged to differ. She opted for Mary McLeod Bethune being the greatest person who ever lived. And I honor both of them with those 8 pictures on my wall, but the biggest picture in my Washington office is a picture of Mary McLeod Bethune. And so, of the 2 people that I really, fell in love with, was Robert Smalls,
Yes.
number 1. But I would have to fight between Thomas Miller, Richard Kane, George Washington Murray. Of course, Joseph Rayner was the first. So I could go through all of that, and I could land on any one of 7 Robert DeLarge.
Yes.
You know why I brought up his name.
Yes, I do.
He was my least favorite. So the most could be any one of Murray, Miller, Kane, and they all had their unique qualities.
Yes.
But let me say this. No two people will have the same set of experiences, and therefore you will not always agree. There was a lot of disagreement among these 8 people. One of the smartest in the group was a guy named Robert Brown Elliott. Robert Brown Elliott was a prolific attorney.
Yes, sir.
He couldn't stand Robert DeLarge. They didn't get along. But when Robert DeLarge got in trouble, and they were trying to expel him from Congress, Robert Brown Elliott defended him as his attorney and won the case. But DeLarge was just too much, and people unelected him.
Wow, amazing. So one of the first 8, Richard Harvey Kane, was also a bishop in the AME Church.
Absolutely.
He helped to build the Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston, as you know, which many people know of because of the murder of the 9
Right.
black congregants there in 2015. Please tell us more about the history and importance of the church.
Richard Kane was born in what is now West Virginia, Greenbrier. At the time he was born, it was Virginia. But Virginia split over slavery. And so he was born in that part of Virginia, which is now West Virginia. His father was African American, his mother was Native American. Not long after, as he was growing up, I think he was around 19 years old, when he felt a call to the ministry. His family moved to Ohio. So he attended Wilberforce University, an AME school in Ohio. And he left there and went to a seminary out somewhere in Iowa. And from there, he became a pastor of Bridge AME Church in New York. Kane felt, he was, when he first entered the ministry, he was in the United Methodist Church. But he fell out of favor with the church over its racial policies. And he went over to become a part of the AME movement as started by Richard Allen. So he had all of this going for him. He tried to volunteer to fight in the Civil War, was not allowed to fight in the Civil War because there was a law against blacks fighting in that war. And so he and a bunch of students were not allowed to fight. But when he got to New York, pastoring, Emmanuel had been burned down. Now, Emmanuel existed long before Kane. In fact, the 1822 insurrection, Denmark Visa's insurrection, was supposedly hatched in the basement of Emmanuel AME Church. And because of that insurrection, Emmanuel Church had been destroyed. And black folks were not allowed to gather for any reason. So when he went to Charleston after the Civil War, he went down there to rebuild Emmanuel AME Church, which he did so successfully. Over 6,000 members joined that church. And then he had to get another church. So he went about 6 blocks away and found what is now Morris Brown AME Church. Morris Brown had been a pastor of Emmanuel, but he was chased out of town after one of those insurrections, and he was up in Pennsylvania, and he became the second bishop. I got all these numbers right? Of the AME Church. Kane decided to name Morris Brown after him, and that's the church that I hold membership in today. So Kane also found a newspaper that still exists, the Recorder, the AME newspaper, still exists today, found by Kane. And I'll tell you something else. The Civil Rights Act, was found, the 1866 Civil Rights Act, well, it was, some people say 1865, but some other things happened that I refer to as the 1866 Civil Rights Act. The most prolific section of civil rights that lawyers still use today.
Yes.
It's called Section 1983. It's in that law created by these guys, and Richard Kane played a role in that. So when you hear all this talk but the politics has got no place in the church, they don't know the history.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
That's almost like saying education has got no place in the church.
Absolutely.
But for the church, where would we be on the educational spectrum?
Amen.
These schools like Allen and Claflin and Benedict next door and Mars over in something, Voorhees down in Denmark, Claflin and Clinton, they were all started by churches.
That's right. Yes.
So, but for the church,
Yes.
aside from the religiosity of it,
Yes, sir.
education. And nothing is more important to education than politics.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that response. The first 8 congressmen belonged to the Republican Party.
Yeah.
The Democratic Party was the party of white supremacy and Confederacy. In the book, you call them Redeemer Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit more about your choice of phrase here.
Well, the Democratic Party in the South was a racist party. It was not a racist. Now, these two parties were all one party. It was called the Democratic Republican Party, and they split in 1824. And the Democratic Party became dominated by the South. Now remember, the original colonies. What were the original colonies? These were the Southern colonies. And so they were dominant. So there were Northern Democrats who were not racist, but the Southern Democrats set out to really redeem the South.
Yes.
That's what they wanted to do. After the Civil War, they took it upon themselves to try to return the South to pre-Civil War days. Black folks were members of the party of Lincoln. Lincoln was the first Republican president. And remember, he was the 16th president. So every president before Lincoln was of another party. They weren't all Republicans. Some were the Whigs. They had all kinds of names. But when the Civil War was over, black folks joined the party of Lincoln. And they all dominated the Republican Party. My parents, I grew up in a Republican household. My mother and father were Republicans. They were still members of the party of Lincoln. It did not change. The change started after World War II, when the 1948 Democratic Convention was held. A speech was given by one Hubert Humphrey, and he called upon the Democratic Party to come out of the shadows of racism and move into the sunlight of justice. That speech drove Strom Thurmond and others out of the Democratic Party. So this switch didn't start until 1948, and it was culminated with the passage of the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1965 Voting Rights Act. It is when you had the big shift. Those people who did not want to see the Democratic Party reform itself left the party. They went over and took over the Republican Party. That's when the shift took place. And also in 1948, so just so you know, there was a Supreme Court case called Elmo versus Rice. Elmo lived right around the corner from here. He filed a lawsuit to break up the whites-only Democratic Party. And when all of that happened, it's when this shift took place. So when I left the home and went to South Carolina State, I thought I was a Republican until I started looking at what was going on. And I said, no, that ain't me over there. And so I joined everybody else. I will always, in the 1960 presidential election, I will always believe that my father voted for Nixon, but I think my mother voted for Kennedy. And the reason I think that is because I listened to the discussions in my house. And from all the discussions taking place, I think that my dad was holding on to the party of Lincoln, and Mama said, that ain't for me.
I love that. I love that story. And that this next question is in reference to your wife and how you met her in Orangeburg, South Carolina jail when you were first arrested in 1960. Can you tell us about that meeting?
Well, 1960, it's kind of interesting. Today is March 2nd. Exactly 65 years ago today, I was denied entrance in the State House where we just left from. March 2nd, 1961. In March of 1960, 8 of us organized a big demonstration. There were 4 of us from South Carolina State and 3 from Claflin. And we, maybe 200 and some of us got locked up that day. And we got locked up around 10:30 in the morning, and had been in jail all day without any food. And some of the students that did not get locked up that day went back to the campus and some kind of way they got into the cafeteria and brought us food. And so later, 4:30, 5 o'clock that afternoon, a group of students came with food, and this young lady came toward me with a hamburger in her hand. And I reached for her. She pulled it back, broke the hamburger in half. She gave me half of it. She ate the other half. I was really famished. That half hamburger was so good. I married her 18 months later. So that's how we met. I don't advise going to jail to find a husband, but it worked in this instance. Yeah.
So early in your political career, you were offered the opportunity to have your arrest for civil rights activities expunged from your record.
Yeah.
And you chose not to. Why?
Well, in 1970, I ran for office down in Charleston for the State House of Representatives. And of course, I was declared the winner on election day around 10 o'clock in the evening. Around 3:30 the next morning, a reporter rang my doorbell and told me that I need to get down to the courthouse because something had happened with the count. So I went down to the courthouse 3:30 in the morning, and sure enough, they told me that when they were adding up the votes, somebody forgot to carry a 1. And so rather than being a 500 vote winner, I was a 500 vote loser. Tough way to lose an election. But the next day, Wednesday morning, when I got to the office, my office, a reporter asked me what happened. And I said, it looks like I didn't get enough votes. And she said to me, oh, Clyburn, you know what everybody's saying. What do you think really happened? And I said, whatever happened, I just didn't get enough votes. And that's the way I left it. Thursday morning, the newspaper headline came out, and that quote was in the newspaper. I just didn't get enough votes. John West had gotten elected governor that day. He stopped through Charleston on his way down to a hunting place, was now Kewah Island. There wasn't a single house in Kewah then. When he stopped to pick up newspapers, he saw that headline. And he went to a phone booth. We didn't have cell phones back then. And he called my home and told my wife that he would like to see me in his office the following Monday. And I met with him, and he asked me to join his staff. I'm telling you this background to answer this question for 2 reasons. Number one, if I had said to that reporter what I really felt, I never would have gotten that phone call from John West. So I'm saying to you, especially in this day of social media, stop putting what you feel on social media. Stop telling everybody what you really feel. In my memoir, I told a story of my dad. We were coming down the steps of a church one day in Darlington, South Carolina. I shall never forget it. And 2 ladies were over there having a discussion. And one of them said to the other, yes, and when I see her, I'm going to give her a piece of my mind. My dad turned to him and said, James, did you hear that lady? And what she just said, I said, yes, sir. He said, I know that lady. She should not give anybody a piece of her mind. She need to keep all that she got for herself. Never forgotten that story. And so I'm telling you, stop feeling that you got to tell everybody what's on your mind. Stop sending this stuff on social. I can point to you people who have been into my office with tears in their faces, who just finished college, looking for a job, but getting denied all over because stuff they put on social media. So that's why I'm telling you this story today. I didn't say to that reporter what I was really thinking. I can tell you, I was not thinking good thoughts. But John West saw the way I took it. And when we sat down here in his new office, he asked me to come to his staff. And I went to his staff. And 3.5 years later, he appointed me to head a state agency, where I stayed for almost 18 years, from which I retired and ran for Congress. All of this led to that. Now here is the real kicker in this. When he appointed me to run the state agency, it required a background check. And when the state law enforcement division did the background check, Chief Strong, J.P. Strong was the chief's name, came by my office and he said to me, he says, Clyburn, your background check comes out the cleanest of any we've ever had, with a few exceptions. I said, what's that? It's your arrest records. said, those arrest records down in Orangeburg, here in Columbia, are still on your record. But they don't have to be. I said, why not? He said, the state passed a law that all of those records from the sit-ins and these civil rights demonstrations for which you were found not guilty. I mean, we were found guilty in South Carolina, but the Supreme Court overturned all those decisions, that we can wipe all those records away. But I need a letter from you. I said, I'm not going to write a letter. He says, I'll write the letter. You sign it. I said, I'm not going to sign that letter. And he looked at me. I said, I will always wear those arrests as badges of honor.
Yes.
So I'm never going to ask. If you want them wiped away, you can pass a law to do it. I'm not going to do it. So I guess they're still there.
Yes. Yes. So at a place like Allen University, what would you say is the unique role of HBCUs in shaping civic leadership and protecting opportunity?
Let me tell you a short story to answer this question. How many of you have heard of Ron McNair? But for those of you who haven't heard of him, Ronald McNair was the astronaut, the African-American astronaut that lost his life when the Challenger blew up. Ron McNair grew up over in Lake City and was not allowed to use the library when he was growing up. We're celebrating Jesse Jackson today, who was not allowed to use the library when he was growing up in Greenville. Ron McNair and Jesse Jackson both went to North Carolina A&T. Now, just before Ron took that fatal trip, he stopped by my office here in Columbia. He had just been interviewed by the University of South Carolina, and he was going to become a professor, head of some effort at the university. And he said to me on that day, he said, Jim, everywhere I go, people introduce me as this black astronaut with a PhD from MIT, a PhD in physics from MIT. He said, that's not why I have been able to succeed. It was when I left Little Lake City, being undereducated intentionally. It was when I got those professors at North Carolina A&T who understood what it was like to grow up in a little tobacco town, not being allowed to use the library, knowing full well that I was undereducated intentionally. It was a time they spent with me. It was those small classes. They built a certain value system in me. That's how I got prepared to be able to get that PhD in physics from MIT. That's the value of an HBCU. My mother, when I graduated, wanted me to go north to school. I decided, and she told me, I've filled out these applications for college. And so she came to me one day and she said, James, what schools have you been accepted in? I said, well, Moms, I only got accepted by one. South Carolina State. I was a grown man before I ever told her I never applied to but one. Because I grew up on and off the campus of South Carolina. My father pastored in Orangeburg when I was growing up. And Matty E. Pegues, the head of the economics department at South Carolina State, was in his church. Gabriel Butner, who, by the way, was married to the daughter of Robert Smalls, was a member of that church. And I saw these people, they were examples to me. I saw them as the kind of people I could be like. And I used to go to the dinner to the Rose family after church. They were all in that family. I saw all these people in that church. I said, I want to go to the school they connected with. So I wasn't thinking about going any place else but South Carolina State. And so I can tell you this, your experience on this campus could lead to a significant foundation upon which to build. I don't do anything. This may shock some of you, but to this very day. Now, I graduated high school in 1957, long before most of you were born. I entered South Carolina State in September of 1957. I met people on that campus. To this very day, several of us meet every year the weekend before Christmas down on Hilton Head. And we stay together till usually New Year's Eve. I met them on this campus, on the State's campus. I still hold on to those relationships to this very day. We never ask, are you going to Hilton Head? The question is, when will you get there? You know, are you going to get there on Friday or Saturday? Will you get there in time for us to get around a golf in the afternoon? Or what time are you going to get? That is what it is. And I owe that little group every bit of the success. They are the ones who've been the foundation upon which I built all that you see in me today. This campus can be the most glorious experience of your lives.
Absolutely.
Recognize two things. Number one, all of you do not have the same set of experiences. I stayed married to that lady you're talking about for 58 years. She grew up on a little 22-acre farm down in Berkeley County. She grew up walking 2.5 miles to school every morning and 2.5 miles back home after night. She grew up at a time when black kids did not have school buses and white kids did have. I grew up on a paved street over in Sumter, 3 blocks from my elementary school, 6 blocks from my middle school, and I'm a graduate of Mather Academy, a United Methodist school that we called in those days a boarding school, where my dormitory was about 25 steps from my academic hall. So I never had the experiences of having to walk 2.5 miles to school every day. Never experienced of living on a farm. When you walking to school 2.5 miles every day, rain, so whatever. So we were never going to see the world the same way. And that's what you have to learn to respect with your fellow students.
Yes.
Don't worry about disagreeing. That's how you grow. If everybody agreed with everybody on everything, well, where would the growth come?
Absolutely.
You have to learn to exchange ideas. Listen, you can respect people without agreeing with them. My goodness. Why would you think that everybody got to agree all the time? No. Learn from them. Because a lot of them are going to learn from you. So that's, to me, that's what these HBCUs are all about. They are foundational to getting through these challenges we have in this country together. And I don't run from it. I don't run from it. I run to HBCUs as much as I possibly can, and I am never, ever say no to an HBCU. I may not respond as quick as some of them want me to, but I never say no.
Congressman, thank you so much. We have time for a few questions from the audience. Please stand and give your name.
Oh, yeah? Okay. I didn't know they grew them that big in something, but that's okay. What a different generation makes. What kind of study?
Getting my master's.
You're getting your master's here?
Yes, sir.
Oh, great.
I got, how many questions can I ask? All right, the first one is two-parter. All right, so as a father, what is your top priority for your family?
As a father,
Yes, sir.
I have 3 daughters. And I'm glad you really asked that question. Because my 3 daughters, all of whom I've spoken to today, no, wait a minute, I text back and forth with one of them. The other 2 I've spoken to. They don't see the world the same way. My oldest daughter, Mignon, and I were in business together. And Mignon and I used to have a lot of differences on what to do with that newspaper we used to run. No matter what, I would lay down the rules. And then when the newspaper come out the next week, it would be exactly what she said it was going to be. She was very independent that way. My daughter, Jennifer, married with 2 children and a grandchild. Jennifer, to this day, and this is as recent as about 3 hours ago, she's always calling me seeking advice. And I said to her one day, Jennifer, don't ask me. Go ask your husband. I gave you away. My youngest, Angela, is my free spirit. Those 3 girls are as different as any 3 people. Now, they're close as sisters, but I don't treat them the same way because their needs are not the same. I treat them according to their needs. So as a father, I act and react to my children according to their needs. When people tell me I treat all my children the same, I say there's something wrong with you. No parent, in my not so humble opinion, should treat all their children the same because all your children will not have the same needs. They don't have the same aspirations, and so you treat them differently. I treat them with dignity and respect. That,
Right.
to me, is what's key.
All right, and for the second part is, for someone who's responsible for a nation, what should their top priority be?
There are 3 things. It all depends what role you play. I feel very strongly that all of us have roles to play, and they aren't the same. Now, I just heard Jesse Jackson Jr. Speak over, as we were just before coming here, over at Brookline Baptist Church today, and he talked about being born under the different star than his father was born under. It was a great talk, but we who are responsible for making our government go are responsible, in my opinion, for trying to make sure that we do and say the things that will make those things that are great about this country accessible and affordable for all of its citizens. That, I've asked those 3 daughters that I just talked about, I've asked them to put on my tombstone. He did his best to make the country's greatness accessible and affordable for all. If it is education, health care, housing, energy, all those basic needs, what can I do to make those things accessible to everybody and affordable by everybody? What does it do to have the best education system in the world if it's not accessible to everybody and affordable by everybody? So that's my North Star. And that's what I do. Sometimes the staff come in and they say, yes, okay. Now, can everybody get this? Is there a pathway to make sure that our constituents got a good chance of benefiting from this? In fact, a lot of people talk about my endorsement of Joe Biden and the fact that I extracted this promise from him to put a black woman on the Supreme Court. That black woman thing, by the way, came in from a discussion I had with those 3 daughters of mine. I'm talking to them about what in the world, I need to endorse Joe Biden, but what can I do? Well, they're the ones that said to me, it's time for a black woman to go on the Supreme Court. You need to make a commitment to put a black woman on the Supreme Court. That's where that came from. But that's not the most important thing I said to Joe that day, in my opinion. I said to him, no matter what questions are asked of you during this debate that's coming up, I want you to answer it with 3 things. Number 1, here is what my proposal will do for you. Here's what it'll do for your family.
Yes.
And here's what it'll do for your community.
Yes.
You answer every question with those 3 entities and stop talking.
All right.
That was my advice to him. And he told me as recent as Saturday morning. That was, what's the day?
Monday.
Okay.
Monday.
Day before yesterday. He never gotten that. He wasn't articulate enough in saying it sometimes, but he never forgot that.
Other questions? Stand, state your name.
How you doing? My name is Coach McCray. I coach football here. It's not necessarily a question, but it's, I guess, an acknowledgement. I actually played at North Carolina A&T, so when you said Ronald McNair and Jesse Jackson, I was actually blessed to walk with Jesse Jackson in the last 2 of the Greensboro 4 downtown with the sit-in with the football team. I played at North Carolina A&T as well, but I coach football here. But I always tell my kids, I have twin boys, you never know about history. I feel like it's racism everywhere, but you got to know your history. I'm originally from North Carolina, but I coach football here, and this will be my 4th year. And just your brief speaking, I didn't know, what was going on at South Carolina State. We're rivals, but just to know the history, I just appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad you do, and congratulations too. And Jesse is a good example. Jesse went to Sterling High School in Greenville. I went to Mather Academy. Our teams played football against each other and basketball. We were arch rivals. He went to North Carolina A&T, I went to South Carolina State, arch rivals. Of course, both of us, independent of each other, became members of Omega Psi Phi fraternity, and that brotherhood developed into a closeness. And those of you who may have been around today, and I had somebody just said this to me over at the State House today. Jesse Jr. was there, his brother Yusef, his daughter, his sister, Santina. Jesse's mother, Helen, was one of my closest friends. In fact, Santina said to me today, my grandmother was your biggest booster. Now think about this. Helen, her son Jesse, his son Jesse Jr., and Yusef and daughter, and all their children there today, 4 generations that I've interacted with. And so what I think you have to keep in mind, that there are a lot of juniors that come along. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Because you don't know whose daughter or granddaughter may have something to say about whether your daughter or granddaughter makes it in the world. I can't tell you how I felt to have Jesse Jackson's grandchildren and great-grands coming up to me today.
Yes.
First time they'd ever seen me. We want a picture with you.
Yes.
Because our grandmother, they didn't know Helen, but they knew Jacqueline. It's important that you keep in mind that just remember, no matter what you say or what you do, at some point, it's going to come back to you. No matter how you treat people, at some point, it's coming back to you. But that doesn't mean you don't disagree. My goodness. I got 2 brothers. We argue all the time because we don't see the world the same way. None of them serve in Congress. So how in the world they could see the world the way I see it?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
One of them is a businessman. I ain't never run a business that relied on my children, that my children need to rely on. So I don't know those kinds of experiences.
Yes, sir.
So we'll talk about everything. They're not going to tell me. I said, oh, yeah? And how many times do you run for office? So you can't tell me how to be a candidate. You know, so there's some things we just ain't ever going to agree on. And nothing wrong with that. If I don't call him by 10 o'clock tonight, because he goes to bed before 11 every night, I'm going to be up to 1. But I have to call him before 11 o'clock every night. If I miss tonight, don't call him before 11 o'clock. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to hear from him. You all right? What you mean I'm all right? You didn't call last night. Man, you ain't deserving a call every night.
Good evening. I am Mackenzie Traylor. I'm from Manning, South Carolina.
You from Manning?
Yes, I am.
Great metropolis of Clarendon. So you're next door to Summerton.
Yes, I am.
Very famous kind of thing.
And I humbly serve as the 93rd Miss Allen University. I'm deeply inspired by the legacy that the first 8 began and the foundation that they laid for us. So my question is, how can, sorry, I'm getting this stage right. So my question is, how can we continue the work that the first 8 began for us as Black students in this generation?
The first thing to please keep in mind that you can be no more, nor will you be any less than what your experiences allow you to be. We are all the sum total of our experiences. So the first thing you keep in mind, whatever it is you are doing or you are thinking about doing, ask yourself, will this lead to a wholesome experience? And be sure that you keep in mind that whatever you do will provide you with an experience that you're going to have to live with. And you need to know whether or not that's going to be wholesome. Read. My dad used to tell me all the time, son, he who does not read is no better off than he who cannot read. Read. You learn so much from reading. It's the foundation. I used to read a lot of biographies, and there's always a nugget I would get from one. I was reading a biography over the years ago. It was the man who made Coca-Cola famous. Now, you grew up, and you've probably seen this. There's a guy named Dr. Chandler found the formula.
Yes.
That's the formula for Coca-Cola, but he's not the one that made Coca-Cola famous.
Yeah.
A guy named Woodruff down in Atlanta. It was his. You got all those parks, streets, and buildings all over Atlanta named for him. In his biography, here's what I learned from him. He wrote these words. He says, there is nothing that you cannot get accomplished if you don't get hung up on who gets the credit.
Yes.
I've never forgotten that. And a lot of people come to me now and they says, man, why you do this? Why you didn't do this? Why you didn't say this? So I don't worry about that. When I wrote my memoir, the epilogue to that book was an open letter to my children and grandchildren and all other children similarly situated. And I want to share it with all of you here today. I said in the epilogue to that book, if you want to go into business, get to know the people that you want to sell your products or your service to. And if you want to go into public service, get to know the people that you want to vote for you. I think the mistake that a lot of people make is they spend so much time trying to get people to understand them. If they spend half as much time understanding the people that they're interacting with, they'll have twice the success. When I meet a person, it can be a voter or a student, I listen to them, and I want to know what I can do to help you fulfill your dreams and aspirations. And if I do the things that are necessary to help you fulfill your dreams and aspirations, you take care of me when the time comes.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Congressman Clyburn. We were honored with all of the wonderful information, knowledge, wisdom you imparted to us this evening. And now I bring the President, Dr. Pritchett, back to the stage to close out the evening.
Let's give Representative Clyburn and our moderator another round of applause. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Representative Clyburn, for sharing your time with us this evening. This has been a long day for Representative Clyburn. Started out at the Capitol this morning with a service for Reverend Dr. Jesse Jackson. And then, of course, over today for the memorial service that was held. And then be able to come here and spend some time with Allen University. We're so pleased to be able to share some of your stories with us, your life, And it gives our students an opportunity to see you in a different light as well, to see persons that you see a lot on TV and news conferences, but to be right here amongst us. I want all of my students, all of the students at Allen University, would you please stand? Thank you so much. As we prepare to close out, I know that there may be some opportunities for the press that may spend some time as well. But we thank you for, once again, for your presence this afternoon, this evening. And we thank our congressman, and on behalf of Allen University, thank you for being here, thank you for showing up, and thank you, Congressman, for being a part of our life.
Thank you.
We will never forget it, and thank you so much.
I appreciate
God
it.
bless.
Thank you.